Today I want to talk about the print function, which is very common and very necessary for every programmer. When you get started with programming, this function is probably one of the most used functions that you will use. So in general it's quite simple, but there are a few things that you should know of because they can make your life quite a bit easier. So let's get started right now. So first of all, the print function is being displayed with print. There's a opening bracket and a closing bracket, and it includes two quotation marks. Just that you know straight away, you could either use these quotation marks or you could use single quotation marks. In both cases you will get the same result and it works just fine. Let's have a look at that. Just fine. Let's change that. Print it again. By the way, for printing this, I'm using this, or I'm using the shortcut, keyboard shortcut, Command plus Enter or Command plus Return on my Mac. Okay, so let's run this again. Just fine. So that all works perfectly fine. So now what I want to do is basically I think this explained it quite well. That's the basics from the print function. The second option here, or the use case of the print function, is a little bit different. So let's say you are printing something, a text, a string. So this inside here we're calling a string. By the way, if you would have a number in here, then you wouldn't use these quotation marks. For a number, you would run it like this, if you want to have this number displayed as a number, as an integer to make calculations, for example. Okay, but in this case we're just looking at strings, so strings, cool. So let's say we are having this string here, and let's write Walt Disney is the true, let's do it like that, the true world, right? So if we print this, everything looks fine. But now if we wanted to add a quotation mark here, we could add these in here, you would think, right? Let's say it's the true world and we want to display quotation marks here. As you can see here, this phrase here, this string changed in color. So it got red in the first part, black and red again. So the issue here is that this first part here is displayed as a string, or is seen as a string of the print function, and this part here is also a string with an opening quotation mark and a closing quotation mark, but this one here doesn't. So the issue here is that we need a string in the print function. So if I run this with here, you can see there's a syntax error, because as you can see here, around where true is, this true here, it tells me where the error is. There's an issue. So what we can do here, or what has to be done here, is to also display quotation marks. We need to use single quotation marks here. Run it again, and as you can see, it's all good. You could potentially also do the opposite. So you could also do this, and if you wanted this to be like this and run this, it should work as well. See? So that's all good. You just can't have a quotation mark in a quotation mark and a quotation mark, like 4 quotation marks in the same string where it's just text. So that doesn't work. Okay, this is one of the use cases. A very interesting one is also concatenation. There are actually 2 cases that I want to look at. The first case is probably, let's take this again up here, copy paste it into here, yeah. And now we're going to change something. We're going to say Walt Disney string plus, not a string. We're going to remove that. We could put this here potentially if we wanted to. Let's just do it for now. And if we run this, let me see, it's throwing some error. Up here, as you can see, here was a double quotation mark. Here was just a single one. As you can see, it tells me here that there's some issue in here. There's like this line here, this wave. So I have to change this to this. It vanished. If I run it now, as you can see, I can run the same print function, or the same, I'm getting the same output for this function as I'm getting for this one, basically. So what is important here is that you can see here Walt Disney is, there's no space, so we need to fix that. So we could either add a space here, run it again, fixed, or we could just add space here and run it again. Or there's actually another option, we could also add another plus sign in here. Sorry. What am I doing? Sorry. Yep. So like this, put a, yeah, like that. So if we do this and run it again, we should, yeah, see the same result again. So basically what we're doing here is we're adding these two quotation marks in here and this plus sign, so this. And we're putting a space in between those two. If we don't put a space here, you got the same result here again. So yeah, we're going to do this and run it. Okay, cool. Then there's another use case of the concatenation. In this case, yeah, it's a little bit more tricky. So what we want to do here is we want to use a print or a string. Let's say we use the same one here. Let's get rid of all of this. Let's just make it, let's just remove this for now too. Yeah, let's make it sweet and clean. So if we run this function again, this works perfectly fine. But what we could do here now as well is we could add a variable. So a variable is basically just a place where we want to store information, which we can get back to later on. So it's kind of stored, and we can use the variable for future programming tasks. So what we could do here, for example, is, let's say we say name is Donald Duck. By the way, we need to add these quotation marks here. Otherwise, we are seeing an error. I can show you this real quick. Let's run it just like that. Okay, as you can see on line 2 already, it tells me, first line, second line, it tells me that there's an error. It points here to duck in this case, but it doesn't know exactly where the error is, but it's in this phrase here. So we have to add this here and run it again. Okay, so that of course didn't work. Let's get rid of this. Name is Donald Duck. Okay, so we stored it, we ran the code. So if we want to now run print the name, we have it stored in the name variable. So the good thing about that is we have it now and we can use it whenever we need to. So what I actually wanted to show though is, let's go back to this one here. And let's say Walt Disney is the true world, yeah. And let's say said. Yeah, let's run that like this. So Walt Disney is the true world said, and we are going to add a space first of all. Here's a space, and we are concatenating, so we are adding something. So we got two pluses just because we don't want to have a space. If we would just make it very simple to actually understand it better, it would be like this, right? So what we are doing here is we're saying, in this case, remove that. Walt Disney is the true world said plus name, and the name is Donald Duck. So if we run this and execute it, as you can see, Walt Disney is the true world said Donald Duck. The issue here now is, again, with the space. That was the reason why I added the plus, but we can also do it just with a space here and run the function again. Okay, that looks good. Walt Disney is the true world said Donald Duck. Cool. So that's the concatenation. Another example, which is quite nice to know. Let's say we would take this, maybe up here, this print function again, copy pasting it, pasting it in here. And let's say we add a few more of these. Maybe goofy said, oh, goofy is a bit goofy, and Mickey Mouse is sweet, and Daisy Duck is the friend of Donald Duck. Let's just keep those ones in here as well. Let's run this whole thing. So what's happening here? Yes, we're displaying every string in a new row, as you can see. And as you can see straight away, it looks a little bit unorganized. It's visually not very appealing. So there's a little trick that we can add here. We could add a backslash and a n, meaning we are including a new line below this printed function. So if I run this again, so this looks better. And we could add that potentially everywhere here if we wanted to just make it a little bit easier to read. Okay, let's just do these ones. As you can see, that might make sense or might make no sense to you, but in case you need it, you can display the text visually quite nicely in this way. And that's it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Bye bye.